This is the first episode of the editorial. It's the third time we've done the first
Third time.
episode.
I think we should just upload, like, literally just whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
No more.
Hello and welcome to the editorial, TLDR's new video podcast, where Zach and I sit down to discuss the latest videos that have come out, the controversy that's come from them, and the decisions we've made. If you don't already know, Zach is our editor-in-chief, and he's kind of in charge of a lot of our video output and also writes quite a few of our videos.
Sure.
So that's kind of a very quick summary of what this is. Do you want to go into any more detail about what people can expect from this show?
Yes, I think basically, what you just said, essentially, we're just going to make the editorial process more transparent and more explicit. I mean, there's basically two reasons for doing this. One, assuming we don't say anything silly, like it should demonstrate to people that we do, in fact, take our stated neutrality seriously, but also that it should also, by holding us accountable, it should also actually improve the quality of our videos, because obviously I don't want to have to come on here every 2 weeks and just be like, it was crap, it was crap, it was crap, to the 10 people that are watching this.
They're going to be very angry.
They're furious.
The 10 angriest viewers.
But so that's the sort of idea, is essentially just by sort of articulating why we made decisions, even apologizing for some of the mistakes we did make, and just sort of, hopefully explaining how we're going to improve things. We should, demonstrate that we take neutrality seriously, and hopefully improve trust between, us as the media, as honoring members of the media and the wider public. Yeah, I know. Does it count? But also then improve the quality of our videos in the long term.
Okay.
So that's it. Sure.
That's what you can expect, the 10 angry viewers. How are we going to start this?
So I think what we decided is that we're going to do it in 2 week increments. So we're going to look back at all the videos of the last 2 weeks on all 4 channels. Not going to do a daily briefing, by the way.
Not for now. Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe one day. We'll
maybe
get
one day. So on all the 4 main channels, and just talk about some of the individual mistakes within those videos, and then perhaps more thematically some of the wider problems.
Sure.
So I think probably a good way of doing this is, I think, to start just by going through each channel and just talking about some of the errors. So I think basically this is quite lucky, I think, because we didn't really have much UK content. We had essentially live streams, and which we can talk about in a bit. But live streams and only a couple of other videos, and they were all relatively uncontroversial, and they went down very, very well. Credit to Ben for that.
Namaste.
Namaste. That was a namaste, wasn't it? So we basically just had EU and global, and there were a fair few. I mean, it's only honest to say there were a fair few small errors across the board.
We accidentally killed someone.
We did accidentally kill the president of Kazakhstan. Let's start with EU before we get into poor Nur Sultan. So I've got the sort of 8 videos up here, and some of the small mistakes we made. So the Black Sea video, that was one we forgot to put the intro in animation.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an error.
That's since been cut. So the section where there should be an animation, where should be the intro, that was just left empty. I'm not totally sure why. I think it was like a render issue that wasn't spotted. That's on us. We are an animator down. We have been for 2 weeks now, so that doesn't help.
Sure.
We're looking forward to being back, Thomas. Come back quickly. But that doesn't help. But even still, we should have spotted that. And now it's been cut from the video through YouTube editor. So hopefully, it's weird there's no title sequence, but it's fixed.
Yeah, I think we should go. Let's go through the small errors quickly, and then we can talk. No, but just I don't obviously. Namaste.
Just defending my
obviously.
animators.
Yeah, of course. I think we defend everyone at the end. But I think because obviously all of these are essentially the ones I'm going to go through. They're all just small errors.
Sure.
And fundamentally, we should talk about just the habit of small errors.
More
generally at the end of it. The Albania North Macedonia video. We put Armenia in the title briefly.
We did.
It's a classic little error. The EU
error.
map included Switzerland and forgot Ireland. Another classic error. The EU gas running out. We used the picture of Ronald Reagan instead of Richard Nixon.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't know how that happened either.
There's no way that Alex doesn't know the difference.
And also, how can you miss Google? Anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Having just said we're going to defend all the animators later.
Slag them off for some things. But.
The new Sanctions video, I think we should talk about in more detail afterwards, because obviously that was a rehash of a previously scrapped video. The HIMARS video, there was the implication that Russian forces are going to go for Bakhmut after Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, when actually, obviously, the sequencing is the opposite way around. You'll look at me wide-eyed. I'm just at least acknowledging all the errors. And the Draghi video, which was quite frustrating, we made it. I mean, actually worked out pretty well, but we made it assuming, well, once he had tendered his resignation, obviously it was refused, and we still put out the video. But I think that sort of worked.
We made
in
that
the end.
before he'd even tendered his resignation. The video was ready to go.
Yeah.
We knew he was going to, but we weren't expecting the rejection.
No, which Italian politics, it's not even our fault, that. Global, the Turkey one, I think the most recent Turkey inflation video, I think fair criticism that perhaps we didn't sufficiently mention how much, obviously we talked about essentially Turkey's booming economy and the fact that its GDP is growing. I think there was some pushback in the comments that we didn't sufficiently recognise that actually inflation, while the GDP is nominally growing, inflation does cause serious harm to ordinary and especially poorer Turks. And I think that's a fair point. And I
think we did acknowledge that.
We did acknowledge it partially. Maybe we could have spent more time. Yeah. Chinese overseas debt crisis. I think this is an interesting one because these aren't actually small errors. I'll just go through it very quickly because I think it makes sense to just go channel by channel. But the Chinese overseas debt crisis, in the video, we push back against the idea that China is engaging in debt trap diplomacy. This is a sort of long-standing intellectual argument when it comes to China-focused academics. I sort of stick by the conclusion of that video. I mean, two separate meta-analyses have concluded the same thing, which is that actually China behaves very much like other creditors, and there are individual cases which look very suspicious. But at the end of the day, it's very, very rare. China lends a lot of money, and it's very, very rare relative to the amount of money that lends that it receives some sort of strategic benefit from a debtor that defaults on its loans. So I don't think that was fair, but it's a common sort of intellectual meme, so a lot of people went with it. The Chinese banking crisis, I was worried at the time that we might be making a mountain out of a molehill because it was just in a couple of provinces. Yeah. But actually, it does look like it's spiraled, and it's still China's banking crisis. Well, China's banking sector is still struggling, especially with people refusing to pay their mortgages. And
I think we acknowledge that in the video. I think we even say fairly early on.
Yeah, we do.
Why are we talking about this if it's just a couple banks?
Yeah, exactly. And that leads us on to the last video on the list, which is Kazakhstan, and we did say he died in office.
We did.
Sultan Nazarbayev, who was the previous president. To be fair, this was my error, so it's my fault. Yeah, I changed the camera, nice. To be fair, this is only an explanation, not an excuse. I shouldn't mix up the stans, but it's because I've written a video on Uzbekistan, and in that case, it's a very similar situation. They had a president who'd been in power for a very, very long time, who had died in office.
Got it.
So I got my stans mixed up, which is culturally insensitive in the extreme.
Yeah.
So I apologize. There's an explanation, not an excuse. So I can only apologize for that.
I'm taking you off the stan beat. You can't be trusted.
So given all that, I think the first thing that we should sort of acknowledge, and this is a recurring theme in our videos, is just the small errors thing.
Yes.
And I think the first thing to say about this is just that there is this trade-off between speed and accuracy. Everyone knows this. It's just that if we get a video out faster, it's more likely to have errors in it. And we've tried to mitigate against that. And originally, I thought we should exclusively focus on accuracy and sacrifice speed. Doesn't matter if the video comes out too late. And you were more resistant to that. And in the end, I've come around to your position because it's just true that videos that get out faster just do so much better. There's such a disproportionate commercial benefit to getting it out early. And people in the comments can tell us to spend longer, and I appreciate it. I know that accuracy affects credibility, and that's really important. And we've talked about processes to try and improve things. But that trade-off is just so real that it's never going to be perfect, is what I'm getting at. So we're definitely going to try and improve it, but there is that trade-off, and it is real. So I think that it's just never going to be perfect. Yeah,
I think on the processes, firstly, we're in the process of hiring a new animator. If you'd like the job, tldrnews.co.uk/team. Good opportunity to get in there. So that means we should have more kind of work hours per video, certainly for an animator perspective, which isn't just good for the animation, but also means the video should be finished sooner, because at the moment they're often finished moments before upload. Whereas if we have a bit longer, there's more time to consult with the writers, or at least share with the writers. We're also working on a way at the moment of collaborating with the animation documents so that they can be shared with the writers sooner. So then smaller things like typos like Nixon,
Maps.
whatever, maps,
Yeah.
that can be spotted by the writer, hopefully, while the animation's happening, because once it's been uploaded, it's kind of too late. Even if we would share it early with the writers, the amount of effort it takes to take the animation, to then put that on top of the audio, to then export, upload, everything, it would be an extra 40 minutes even to fix a tiny error, just because that process takes a while.
And that's what we tried originally, and it just, at the time, just didn't work time-wise.
Especially now we've got to upload to YouTube and Nebula. It's a real time sink.
And also because the upload is often quite late. Sorry, this is all an explanation, not an excuse. We do really want to improve these things. And that process that Jack talked about, collaborating live as the animators animate, that's only like, that will be implemented from Monday, essentially. So hopefully that will make a big difference. But it's also that the videos were uploaded quite late, and just you don't pay people to work at like 9 p.m. You know what I mean, as a writer, and then get an animator at 10 p.m. to upload, and we upload it for 7 a.m. or whatever it is. So that's on the small errors thing. I think the other thing that worth mentioning that we breezed over a second ago, then I think that covers the small errors thing. So. Is the sanctions video? We'll work it out, and hopefully every 2 weeks we can come on, do more apologizing.
Progress updates.
Yeah, exactly, and say we're implementing a new process. The other one is a sanctions video, and just for people who weren't conscious of what's going on.
The drama.
Yeah, following the drama. A bit grandiose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, we released a sanctions video about 4 weeks ago, which I think the title of which was "Have Sanctions Backfired?"
Yes.
And I think that the general gist of the video, that there are some respects in which sanctions haven't been as effective as we might have hoped. That's not to say they've been ineffective. They've actually been very, very effective. And a lot of the sort of like chat about the strength of the ruble, as we mentioned in the rehash video, is nonsense. But the video that we released 4 weeks ago, the original video, just wasn't sufficiently balanced, and it did just only focus on the ways in which, and probably over-egged the ways in which sanctions haven't worked. And to give a bit of context, again, this is merely an explanation, not an excuse. I'm going to have to keep saying that. It was partly because at the same time we were writing a controversial video about IQ, which was taking up a lot of my time, my editorial time, and I didn't write that sanctions video. And so in some part there just wasn't the capacity to properly edit that video, and that's not a good enough answer to the audience. I mean, we should be doing better there. I essentially trusted the writer, and Nelson's brilliant. He's normally almost always writes brilliant stuff. And this was just a slight hiccup. Again, in Nelson's defense, I should say I don't think he was helped by the fact that the taxonomy that he applied to the video to evaluate whether or not sanctions had worked, he'd lifted it from like academia. And at the end of the day, it's not his fault. It's just a crap taxonomy. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And basically it's separate. He said sanctions had 3 metrics by which you could measure their efficacy, deterrence, punishment, and rehabilitation. And I just think that none of those are they're not exhaustive nor mutually exclusive. Like, they just don't cover the efficacy of sanctions. And then on that front, he only looked at the respects in which they hadn't worked. So I just don't think it's really entirely, it was a big mistake, essentially. And it was a combination of, I think Nelson read the wrong stuff, unfortunately for him, and I failed to edit it sufficiently. So namaste and apologies. But the new video, I think, is better. There was still, there was a lower like-dislike ratio than average. Still very, very high, so I don't think we should infer too much from that. And there was some pushback against the idea that essentially sanctions hadn't worked in some respect. I think that I'm going to defend the video. I think that we do sufficiently qualify that sanctions in most respects have worked, and we actually dispel a couple of the myths that sort of the more pro-Putin propaganda is often pushed, which is that the ruble is booming and that sort of thing, which is nonsense. And I think that the basic premise of the video there, that in some sense energy sanctions they're just not as effective as you might have hoped, because they do in turn push energy prices up, and the data does suggest that Russia is making more off its energy sales than it would be otherwise. It's hard to, obviously when I say would be otherwise, I'm appealing to a particular counterfactual. It's impossible to know how much revenue Russia exactly would be making had we not implemented sanctions, it's very hard to isolate the variables, very hard to isolate the impact of sanctions on the wider on global oil and gas prices and how that plays into Russia's revenues. But the evidence does suggest that, and we outline that in the video. We do also mention in the video, and it's a bit quick, but we do mention it, that you might, and I think this is actually behind some people's intuitions about sanctions and why they get so angry about it, is that you, even if it's not decreasing Russia's revenues, you might still think we have a moral obligation not to buy gas from Russia. Like, even if it's not directly taking down the amount of money that Putin has, you might still feel like, we just still shouldn't be doing it. Or you might feel that it might have some intangible political benefit. You're in some sense isolating Russia politically by saying, like, we're not going to buy stuff from. And I think we do acknowledge that in the video, and I think that's important. But I do defend the basic premise of the video, which is that the energy sanctions there is a sense in which they might be self-defeating. And also, the main question there is, given that fact, does the EU want to spend what is fundamentally limited political and economic capital? Because it does have limited capital. There is only so much that European electorates will do for Ukraine. Do we want to spend all of that on sanctions that might not be reducing revenues? Yeah. So I basically want to defend the video. So that's sort of most things covered. The only other thing that may be worth covering were the live streams. I think those went very well.
Sure,
I'm intrigued to see what you think hear about what you think about it editorially, and possibly the Talk TV video if you want to talk about that.
Okay, what do you want to say about live streams?
No, I just think.
Live streams. Is there anything you want to say on that, or do you?
Well, I just think I think the live streams are an interesting one because obviously it's harder to maintain neutrality in real time. Yes. You don't have an editor there. I just think it went surprisingly well.
I agree.
I don't really know what else to say.
Comments to disagree.
Yeah, if genuinely though, if there is something that you disagree with, please do say. That's the whole point in this. Normally, I wouldn't encourage people to leave mean comments about it. But some of our writers get very upset.
Next week.
Yeah.
2 weeks time.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do think something else about the live streams, please do say.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I was surprised by how well we maintain neutrality. I
think from a technical side and from an editorial side, I think they was much stronger than I expect. Considering
than we expected.
And considering we hadn't really done a proper live stream with this setup yet, and we hadn't done a live stream properly since 2019, and that was notoriously a bit of a stinker. So
it was a stinker.
So I think all in all, I think live streams was strong. Talk TV. I mean, I think.
I only mention it because it's a different style to our usual video.
Yeah, for sure.
I can say my part in it, which was that I was clearly skeptical. Yeah. This was something that Jack was very keen on. I was clearly skeptical of it, but I think it was, again, just really good.
Just a bit of fun.
It was a bit of fun. And also, you know what I think you did quite well maintaining neutrality. Attacking Talk TV is almost apolitical. I mean, they're just rubbish.
From a left-right perspective, anyone who's attacking the video for the style, fine. It was different. I can understand why people might think they don't like it. Yeah. Also, I don't know if people did say this. I haven't.
No, they loved it. People loved it.
If people didn't, for the 10 angry people that didn't like this style, fine. It's different. We thought we'd try something new, some clips, a bit more jokey, a bit less serious.
Yeah, sure.
But we did some actual analysis. We watched 10 episodes. We worked out the ratio of whatever. So there was some data in there. But beyond that, what are you going to do? It's a video about Piers Morgan. It's not going to be. We can't drill into the GDP of a country. It's Piers Morgan.
I agree.
So if you didn't like that, fine. The political thing, I kind of get it because it's clearly they're more right wing on the whole. But I think most of our criticisms were to do with the programming, and the structure of the show rather than the politics. I think we do. I mean, we characterize some culture war arguments as tedious and that no one cares. And sure, there probably are some people that care about whether Australian schools are selling ham sandwiches, which is one particular thing we mock. And I do sure that we make a joke about, or we kind of make light of the fact that Piers is constantly asking people what a woman is and say what a pointless argument. I think we were mainly joking at the format rather than anything to do with the ideology across the board. And I think if there was a badly put together show on a left-wing TV channel, we would probably make a video about that too. Yeah. Especially if it featured a massive multi-million-pound marketing campaign and one of the most prominent news presenters in the UK. The failure is interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, basically in summary, isn't it, that you have The format was obviously different, and fair enough if you didn't like it.
Yeah.
And we probably should be wary. We don't think we made a big mistake. But we should be wary of the tone we take when talking about cultural issues in that context.
Yes.
But I think we both agree. And please, again, do let us know in the comments if you disagree, because the whole point of this thing is to try and hold us accountable. But it didn't feel like a gross violation of our political neutrality, or even a violation at all.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think we did well there. Well done us. Yeah. So yeah, I think that sort of covers it. I think as a final thing, camera change again.
I wanted to look in the camera too.
As a final thing, please do say, God, that's a good look, isn't it?
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Please do say basically just if you have any constructive criticism, hopefully, please do say both about the structure of this particular podcast, the editorial, but also about any of the videos mentioned, or even any of the videos not mentioned. And well, I guess that's sort of it.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and we do genuinely care about the feedback. Like,
yeah,
we're not being totally serious throughout, but like,
no,
that's because if we do talk seriously about ourselves for 25 minutes or whatever, like that's a little cringe. So, yeah. Anyway, be sure to comment on YouTube what you think, and if you're listening to this somewhere where you can't comment, just go to the YouTube video and just comment there, or tweet us.
Nice.
Any of our Twitter accounts.
Sure, that sounds good.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, yeah.